The Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation is the only thing anybody wants to talk about, obviously. And two names have emerged now that were not on the list yesterday that, I don't know, are growing. People are confident will end up in Pittsburgh. We got to talk about their fit and if they should even be on the list for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers obviously hunting for a quarterback. That is the entire situation that has taken up the entire offseason up until this point. It is only February 21st. There is plenty of time left. They are yet to go to the NFL Combine, yet to decide if an NFL draft quarterback is even on their radar, if free agency is even an option for them, or if they are going to make a splash trade for a guy like Justin Fields. Everything is on the table. Nothing has been ruled out. And the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't said a word. Outside of Kenny Pickett is entering year 3, and we have a lot of belief in that guy, and Mason Rudolph is our top option, and we would like to re-sign him, keep him on the roster, and have him compete with Kenny for the starting job in 2023. But nobody is willing to accept that. Everybody is looking at alternatives because they do not believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be able to retain Mason Rudolph, and at this point, nobody is very confident that Kenny Pickett is about to turn it on. At least those in the media are not very confident Kenny Pickett is about to turn it on in year 3 and become a superstar quarterback and the juggernaut that the AFC needs to defeat a guy like Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you do not have that juggernaut, you do not stand a chance in the playoffs going against a guy like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just the truth about it. Lamar Jackson couldn't do it. Nobody on the Pittsburgh Steelers' current roster is looking like they would be able to do it. So you have to ask the questions, and I think that's why everybody is assuming the Pittsburgh Steelers are a quarterback away. This team is through the rebuild. We talked about that yesterday. They are ready to win now. They are a team that is not, oh, well, we have too many holes, and if they fill these holes, it is a team with very minimal holes. If they filled 0 of those holes, they would have such few gaps on this roster that I believe that they could still be a team that competes for the top seed in the AFC if they have a quarterback. And I am not alone at saying that, and there are many people who believe that same sentiment, but they have to go get a quarterback. And we talked about every option. I'm a big fan of Justin Fields, and everybody knows that because they tell me I'm crazy. But there are other options that other people are tossing out there that they believe are just as realistic, if not more realistic, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the two most recent ones are a bit out in left field. At least one of them is. The other one has been tossed out a couple of times, but has never caught much traction. You just kind of looked at it and said, I don't know about that one. I don't know if the Pittsburgh Steelers are in that market. I don't know the connection there. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. But that seems to be the one that, if you asked right now, at least one NFL analyst, podcast host, I believe he now works for the Las Vegas Raiders, and former Pittsburgh Steelers rival, believes is going to happen because he's been told it's going to happen. Chad Johnson at the Nightcap podcast with Shannon Sharp said that a little birdie has told him that Russell Wilson is headed to the Pittsburgh Steelers and that he is going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. I don't know what that little birdie is. I don't know if that little birdie said this is a definite or if it was an assumption. I don't know if it was just, oh, this is the top option, or if that little birdie has already spoken to both Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers and said this is a done deal. This is already happening. That is the landing spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Immediately once he said that, Russell Wilson skyrocketed to the top of the Pittsburgh Steelers options board. All of the sports books everywhere immediately made the Pittsburgh Steelers Russell Wilson's favorite landing spot because obviously when Chad Johnson says it, it is biblical and it is word. And I don't know how to take it because I don't know who Chad Johnson is talking to. I don't know who this little birdie is, but I will say this. Russell Wilson does seem like a realistic option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if it's real, if both sides are comfortable with making things work. But the Steelers aren't going to pay Russell Wilson a boatload of money. They're not going to pay Russell Wilson $40 million a year. They're not going to pay him $35 million a year. They're going to pay him a very reasonable salary, somewhere in that 25 to 30 mark, and say, hey, look, you could come finish your career in Pittsburgh and try to win a couple of Super Bowls, and we believe that you are a juggernaut enough to go and defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that that statement is true. I think that if the Pittsburgh Steelers got classic Russ, which I believe is out there, I believe you could go get Russell Wilson and make Russell Wilson work, that the Steelers have a shot at winning the Super Bowl. I truly, truly believe that. And I believe that if a little birdie said both sides to both sides, I believe that's possible and both sides agreed, then maybe it is on their radar. Maybe it's an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe Russell Wilson makes a lot of sense. Who knows? Who knows? Chad Johnson has never been in a story of mine before where he has broken news, and I am not saying that I don't have confidence in what he says. I'm just saying that as of right now, I don't know who that little birdie is or exactly what was said, and to just say he is signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers when he's still currently on the Denver Broncos roster, I mean, the Steelers can't make those phone calls. They can't sit around and say, hey, Russ, you coming to Pittsburgh once the Denver Broncos release you? That is not allowed to happen. So you got to question and say, what is that little birdie talking about? Exactly what are the details of this situation? And how guaranteed is it that Russell Wilson's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Or does one side or the other just want him to end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers? If it happened, I think it boosts their roster for the right price. I think you could look at that and say, Russell Wilson's a Super Bowl winning quarterback who has a lot of success in this league, who hasn't had a great team around him in a long time. And if he comes to Pittsburgh and has a great team around him, maybe that changes. Maybe he's Danger Russ once again. I don't know. We'll see. The other option is a bit less realistic in my mind, but has been tossed out there and is not a name that I expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to go after, but is a name that has popped up. Rich Eisen said it the other day, hey, what if Jimmy Garoppolo ends up with the Pittsburgh Steelers? What if that's his next landing spot? He's expected to be suspended 2 games. He is still on the Las Vegas Raiders roster, but is expected to be released by mid-March. Maybe he's the next backup to Kenny Pickett, and Rich Eisen says, you never know. Jimmy G has claimed starting jobs that he wasn't supposed to have before. Why would it not happen again? I'm not going to say I disagree with that. I just don't know if that raises the bar for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if you're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo and saying, this is the guy that we're going to shut down Kenny Pickett for. Because I think that's where you have to weigh your options is you want to be in on Kenny Pickett. You want Kenny Pickett to work out. Who are you willing to remove that shot for? Who are you willing to close the door on Kenny Pickett early for? Russell Wilson makes sense in that category. Justin Fields makes sense in that category. Kirk Cousins makes sense. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't make a ton of sense. He's kind of like a Ryan Tannehill. He's the same guy. He's a Gardner Minshew. He's a guy that's going to come in here and you want him to be the backup, but that's not real competition for Kenny Pickett. Really, at that point, is Kenny that bad that he loses the starting job? Because if he doesn't lose the starting job, it's his starting job to keep. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers want Mason Rudolph because they want him to push Kenny Pickett. They want him to show, hey, look, I'm starter capable. Everybody knows that. The wide receivers love me. The offense flows when I'm in the game. I am their best option. Can you outlast me? Can you beat me? I think that's why they love the idea of Mason Rudolph. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in here. He's your backup. He's just immediately your backup. He's not even showing up for 2 games. So there's no way that he is winning the starting job for you in training camp. That's just not happening. This is Kenny Pickett's job. I think Ryan Tannehill makes more sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers in a sense of at least you have options. I think Gardner Minshew makes more sense in the sense of at least you have options. Jimmy Garoppolo is a name that I was not expecting to be on that list. I do not think it makes any sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Isn't a name that I would even call or consider if I'm Pittsburgh. I mean, if you're left worst case scenario, cool, and you just don't have a quarterback and everybody's gone and Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been signed anywhere and it's May 2nd and the NFL draft is behind us and you still don't have a quarterback, okay, then we could talk. But for right now, where the Steelers stand currently, no chance. Not even thinking about it. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is worth what the Steelers are looking to do. I don't think he fits any piece of their game plan this offseason or moving into training camp. And I think there are a lot of quarterbacks that do. Obviously, to different degrees, to various degrees of, some of these guys are the perfect fit. Some of these guys, we have to adjust a little bit. Some of these guys, not as much as we anticipated, but still hold the same ground that we are looking for, at least to a minimal degree. Jimmy Garoppolo is way out in left field, doesn't hold any of these standards that the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for when it comes to competition for Kenny Pickett or to replace Kenny Pickett this offseason. He's just simply a backup who isn't going to be here for 2 games, so you put yourself in a really big hole. Not ideal. Not going to happen. Russell Wilson, more realistic. Maybe Chad Johnson knows what he's talking about. Maybe that little birdie knows what he's talking about. I don't know. We'll find out. But for right now, if you have to go off the 2 new emerging options for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could scratch Jimmy G and possibly boost Russell Wilson.